Welcome, everybody, to the glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. Our HOLM 22 is Ryan's, and PORSBR. I was driving late last night, so you have to let me get through this. PORSBR is my Twitter handle. Talking about the Raiders real quick before we go to the Raiders. This channel is USC football, and the USC played Utah last night. The first half was okay. The second half was not. I know we both watched the game. Okay, kind of a quick summation of that. What was the bottom line besides the 800 missed tackles?
I think it was, kind of what you're saying with these offensive gurus. I thought with Lincoln Riley, he got out of the run game way too quick. And I think the turning point of the game clearly was the injury to Caleb Williams on the run, where he broke loose down the sideline and pulled his hamstring. And he tried to fight through it, but I still come back to this. They were up 17-3. They had the ball in plus territory, 2nd and 1, and they took a sack and they didn't run the football. And that's basically when the game turned, and you saw a 44-7 run by Utah. And Utah turned out to be the more physical team, and they just wore out the USC defense. I think, as I thought about it more this morning after watching the game yesterday, Lincoln Riley's got to make a change at defensive coordinator. Like, if Lincoln Riley wants to take USC to where they need to be, they have to have a defense to compete on the national scale. And that's something he's never had. He never had one at Oklahoma, and he hasn't had one. And this year he didn't have the talent. I think what we really saw was the cupboard was bare when Lincoln Riley showed up, because Clay Helton basically stopped recruiting elite athletes about 5 years ago and just started picking up 3-stars. And you saw that. It bared out on the field. USC had some injuries, and then they just didn't have the depth, and then they never adjusted. You saw them go empty, and then Utah was just bringing 6. They were bringing one more than the offense could block every play. They were playing man coverage on the outside. They never adjusted, and that was it. And as soon as Caleb Williams couldn't escape and became, I'm not even going to say one-dimensional, he was like half-dimensional, because he really couldn't even step into any throws or anything, because that was on his back leg. Like, he hurt his hamstring. So I think there's a different result if Caleb Williams doesn't get hurt, but he did, and that's football. And I think Lincoln Riley needs to come away from this and understand the strengths of his team. It's not about just trying to score 50 points. He's got to understand that his defense wasn't very good. They didn't stop anyone all year. They have to figure out how to cover the middle of the field. And then at some point, he's going to have to run the ball more consistently in these type of games and not try to be the genius that everyone wants him to be and just win the football game. But hats off to Utah. They were more physical. They were down 17-3. They handled adversity, and USC didn't.
Yeah, that's true. And so, and I think that it's that whole, a lot of people talk about the play callers not coaching the entire game. They're just calling the score. They're calling plays to score points. That moment you mentioned in the game, I mean, that was the game. I mean, that was the game. I thought if they were able to, if they weren't able to score, that would have been a situation where you go into half up 17-10. It's totally different when it's 17-17. And they got the ball. They did get a stop on that point. And I just think also too, special teams, the little things, like we talk about special teams probably more so than anybody else. In this genre of like sports podcasting, but you have to invest in a special teams coach. I'm not sure why it's not a priority, but I mean, to kick that ball with 20 seconds left on the clock after that drive you just talked about is, and then on the ensuing drive they scored with 2 seconds left in the half. Like, that's just like boom. I mean, you just do the math simply. They might not have scored. It took a lot for them to score. So that was bad football by them as well too. And Alex Grinch is not. It's just it's not it. And if you want to come back and just say you're going to get better players and think it's going to change, you're crazy. It's not gonna change.
I think the first thing I would do if I was Lincoln Riley today is pick up the phone and call Jim Leonard from Wisconsin.
Yes.
I thought he was going to get that job. He didn't. And if he's available to run a defense, go get Jim Leonard, bring him over to USC to run the defense, because Alex Grinch is not it.
He's not it. He's not it. And even with the lack of horses they had there, tackling is just tackling. I mean, you could tackle the person in front of you. Like, you're a D1 athlete, You can tackle, and they didn't have elite running backs on that team either at Utah too. So that's just
They gave
embarrassing.
up a touchdown on a 3rd and 19, and they gave up multiple 3rd and 10 plus on the same drive before halftime. Like
Yeah,
that can't happen. It seemed like they had success when they tried to put a little bit more man, and the minute they went to zone, they looked like the Raiders. Let's be honest. Like they couldn't cover anybody
yeah, that's
playing
crazy.
zone.
Crazy, and of course they rushed three, but that's enough about USC. You can check out more USC on the Student Body Right USC podcast with myself. Let's go with these. Do you have the questions that we're gonna roll through, or no?
I don't.
You don't. I got 4 questions for
Fire
you.
away.
Then.
I'm ready to go.
Ready to go. So one, will Josh McDaniels and Ziegler make it to the end of their contracts?
Into their contracts. What is that? 4 years?
4-year deal.
My heart wants to say yes because I want them to be there for 4 years and I want this team to be successful.
Yeah.
My head says no. My head says they don't make it 4 years. Through
So,
4 years.
through
They
4
they
years.
I see at some point if they don't like turn this thing around like next year, if this team goes out next year and goes 6-11, there's no way those two guys are coming back. So
Yeah.
I think they have to win 10 games next year, and I think they have to make the playoffs. And I think in the 3rd year, they need to be, 10, 11, 12 in the playoffs. They need to make the playoffs the next 2 years, I think, to stay around.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. How many starters from this year's offensive line do you think will be back next year?
Starting or on the team? That's two different questions.
Let's go with I'll go with on the team. Because you need
On the team.
depth.
So
You
I think
need,
3 of the starters are back. I think James and Parham are going to be somewhat safe. There's too many holes in this team to move on. And then Colton Miller. I think those 3 are safe. I do think Illuminor they re-sign. Illuminor hasn't given up a quarterback hit or a sack. I think in the last 3 since week 3. It's some crazy number. So I think as a swing tackle, there's a spot for him because he's showed up at left tackle for a week and was serviceable over there. I think Munford, so that's 5.
is Haran coming back? Is he a free agent or
He's a free
Karen?
agent. Justin Haran, I think so. I'm gonna say 5. I don't think they like this group. I don't think Simpson's back. I don't think Bars is back.
No.
I don't think
Oh,
Barton is back. He hasn't really gotten a chance. But as much struggles as they had, and they haven't really mixed in anyone other than Munford. I think if you're not in that top 5 and Munford, you're in serious jeopardy of not being on this team next year because they're playing the 2 rookies. Like there's no one behind them that is a developmental guy.
Yeah. Let's see here. What could Paul? These are like from like between. These are from a lot of people from fans too. So what could PG do to make the defense more consistent this year?
More consistent this year. I think you've already started to see them do it. They're playing a lot more man lately. But the problem is they're running out there with a lot of undrafted guys. Like on any given down, you have Webb running out there with Hall and Masterson. So you have 3 guys in the middle of this, slot outside middle of the field that are undrafted guys that just don't have the talent really to be game changers. I think just the only thing he can do to really be better is kind of mix up, the blitz schemes and try to get a little bit more creative to get pressure. Because if they're not going to get pressure and they're going to try to play coverage, like they got away with some stuff last week where guys were open down the field, but the pressure got home.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to have to bring better blitz packages if they want to be more consistent. But what is more consistent? This team doesn't have talent on defense. They haven't spent a lot of money there. Like Nate Hobbs is coming back. Maybe that'll help. So they have to cover for a little bit longer and they have to get to the quarterback a little bit quicker. And if they can't figure out how to do either one or both of those, they're not going to get
Yeah.
anywhere.
Well, that's it. And then I think one more we got true or false, Britton Brown will be on the team next year.
True. They didn't stash him on the team for the whole year to get rid of him. Yeah. I think Brandon Bolden might not be on this team.
That'd be a plus.
So I do think they do find a way to have White and Brown. Clearly, they like Brown.
They do. I mean, he showed a little something in preseason, but preseason is preseason as far as
So did Lewis Rankin.
Lewis Rankin, not Rankin. Or who was it? Chris Warren?
Chris Warren.
Chris Warren
the third.
Everyone, Chris Warren. He's not even in the league anymore, but everybody wanted Chris Warren. Let's just start with the Raiders. All right. All 22. What you see from the from last week's game that kind of fancied your eye there.
Yeah, I thought the offense was very efficient. They moved the ball pretty much at will. I thought the offensive line had one of their best 2 games of the year, both in run blocking and pass blocking. You saw Zamir White get a couple carries and bust loose there. They mixed up the run scheme a lot in this game. So they ran
Mhm.
some stuff they haven't run before. They ran a lot of what you call jab. I highlighted one of them on Twitter, jab 10 gap, which was basically a counterplay with gap blocking. And you saw that's the one Zamir White got loose on. So they're mixing in a couple of more concepts they haven't used a lot. And then you saw them move Devontae Adams around a lot in this game and get him involved in a short game. It wasn't down the field other than the incredible catch he made where he was interfered with, but the ref decided not to throw the flag. And he made the one-hand catch. But I think this game you saw that this offense can actually be efficient if the protection is just there, and it was. So they were able to go up and down the field, and clearly Josh Jacobs took over there in the second half and then in
Yeah.
overtime. But you're starting to see them get the running backs involved in the passing game for like the first. Remember the first like 5 or 6 weeks? We're like, there's 3 guys out in every route. It's a 2-man route. It's a 3-man route because they were
Yeah.
keeping them in to block. Now you're seeing those guys get out and catch passes. You're seeing them do 2 backs a lot to get, line them up on both sides of the car in the shotgun. So you see Abdullah and Jacobs on the field together, and they're getting those guys out quickly into pass routes where they can win one-on-one. Because with this offense, if teams are going to guard them the way they are, if they're just going to double Devontae or roll the safety over there,
Makes
everyone
sense.
on the other side of the field is in man coverage, whether that's Renfro when he comes back, whether that's Moreau, whether that's Hollins, whether that's the back. So those guys have to win one-on-one. And I think out of that group, you're seeing Abdullah start to be that guy. And we're wondering what took so long because the Raiders just didn't use the running backs the first probably 5 or 6 weeks. They didn't run the ball the first 2 weeks. Imagine the season Jacobs having. They didn't even run the ball the first 2 or 3 weeks.
I mean, what, 11 games. He almost has 1,200 yards. That's impressive. That's impressive as far as that goes. Defensively, they did get some turnovers. Still not going to be. The league is a talent league. Like you gotta have some talent. I did like the fact that obviously, if you're gonna pay Max Crosby to be disruptive. He was disruptive, and he was disruptive in clutch moments in the game. Geno Smith must have crazy strong hands because especially a couple of those sacks, I thought for sure were going to be fumbles, but they weren't. They seem to be getting some pressure. It sounds like Andrew Billings is not. It sounds like it's a fibula. It's not out for the year or anything like that. It looked like he was out for the year as far as that goes. He's been playing great football. I'm not sure if he's going to make it to the Charger game, but he's been playing pretty well. We thoughts about the defense and about the defensive line especially.
I think first of all, the fibula designation. I'm not a doctor, but that's the bone that
Yes.
runs on the outside of your leg. It's a non-weight bearing leg, so it's either hairline fracture or it's not. So it's probably an ankle injury we're talking about, like a sprained ankle, and they're going to hide it in the fibula, but it's clearly not a fibula because if it was broken, he would need to sit out a month. Um, I thought Billings got pass rush. He got up the middle. You saw, he had a club swim move. He got a sack and a half. He hasn't really played on passing downs this year. They've always been trying to make. They tried Chandler Jones in there. They tried Farrell. They tried Vickers. They've tried a mixture of a lot of different guys. And this week it was Billings' turn, and then he got loose. And then you saw Bilal Nichols get home a couple times. You saw Chandler Jones, bend the edge. Or not, well, he doesn't really bend, but he got around the corner enough to where he got like 7 pressures. So, he was getting close, but I still think the coverage on the back end wasn't great when you watch the all 22. Again, they don't have a ton of talent back there, especially when they're going to play all these young guys. And my question, where's Amik Robertson? Like, we didn't see him the whole game. He didn't, we questioned it last week. Like, where is he? This week, they brought him in. I think it was the last drive of the game. They split him out 1-on-1 with DK Metcalf for a couple snaps. He played like 4 or 5 snaps the whole game. So clearly, there's something's going on with Amik where he's either injured or there's something going on in practice because they're giving snaps to like undrafted guys and Anthony Avery, who's on IR now, but over Amik Robertson. But I still think this defense, if they can keep the game in the low 20s, that's kind of the best thing you can ask for right now because they don't have the talent that some of these other teams have. And to expect them to go out there and hold teams to 10 or 14 points like some fans in the Raider Nation want them to do, they just don't have the talent over to do that. And they haven't used enough resources on that side of the ball to do that.
Yeah, I don't. That whole concept of us like blame a defense when the offense is getting shut out in New Orleans is like, what are we doing? Like, I mean, all
I
the
got
money.
news coming. Like
Yeah.
Mahomes is still on the schedule. Herbert's on the schedule this week. Like now, if they go out and they give up, 24-30 against the Rams without Cooper Kupp and without Matthew Stafford, that's a problem. If they give up that to the Patriots, that's a problem. If they give that up to the Steelers, that's a problem. If they hold those teams 17-21, it's about what you're going to ask them to do. So this team's not throwing a shutout anytime soon, but I think the way the offense is playing, that they have a chance to make a run. We talked about it last week. If they're able to find out, this is the key game. If they win this week, the Rams just put Stafford on IR. Aaron Donald's out. Allen Robinson's out. Cooper Kupp's on IR on a short
Mhm.
week, and that's in LA. They can win that game. And then they have the Patriots and the Steelers. So they
Mhm.
have a chance to turn this 2-game win streak. If they can get through the Chargers game this week, they might be able to roll 4, 5, 6 games together here before they're staring San Francisco and Kansas City on the schedule last 2 weeks.
Yeah, the two games is not gonna make me feel great. But this one would be a nice one to grab if they can grab this one, and then I think you take them a little bit more seriously with the short week, and you're playing kind of the perfect scenario here, where you're playing a team that is, let's be. I mean, you could just. I mean, if you can't beat if the as much as its talent is an issue on the defensive side of football, with the offensive line problems that the Rams have had and all the problems they've had, no Matthew Stafford. I mean, that would be that'd be a
Or
tough.
Cup or Robinson or potentially Donald. Like they're down to Jalen Ramsey and a bunch of practice squad guys because
And
they
who,
haven't had any draft picks for the last
and who knows?
6 years.
Maybe after the first quarter and Devontae catches a pass on Ramsey, he might come up with an injury as well too. So you never know as far as that goes. Let's move on. I think we exhausted everything about the Seahawks. Let's move over to the rivals. The Chargers. Chargers are just I mean, up and down team. Been up and down forever. And this head coach, this um, this quarterback. I mean, I'm just kind of hoping from a Raider perspective that they do just enough to keep Staley around. Like, I mean, I don't blame everything on Staley. I think the player has to take some responsibility too. I think Herbert has to take some responsibility as well. I don't think that's fair to do that. But and he hasn't been crazy, Staley. I thought he did a good job last week and going for that 2-point conversion, knowing it probably was the best thing for his team. But they have been. I think the biggest issue that I have with Staley isn't the crazy going forward on fourth down. Is he's responsible for the whole team, but you have to get the defense better. Like I mean, for this defense to be as bad as they are is pretty crazy. And for those in the Raider Nation who want to blame a defense, well, this defense isn't good either, and they find a way to be a little bit over 500 too. And they're not 4-7. So as far as that goes, what are your thoughts about the Chargers here as we overview and look forward to their game on Sunday, 1:25 Pacific time against the Raiders?
Yeah, I wrote the numbers down, so I'll read these for the listeners. The Chargers
Okay.
defense is giving up 25.6 points a game, which is worse than the Raiders. That's 29th in the league. They're giving up 151 yards a game on the ground, which is 28th in the league. They're giving up 217 yards passing, which is 18th. So they're middle of the pack passing. They're giving up 5.4 yards per carry, which is dead last in the league, and it's the worst in the league in the last, I think, since like 2000. I saw some crazy stat out of 734 defenses. They're ranked 734th in like the last 20 something years in yards per carry. So basically, if you turn around and hand it off twice, you're going to get a first down every time. So Josh Jacobs, Zamir White should get the ball a ton this week. If they come out and they start spreading guys out and throwing 2-yard hitch routes, I'm out. Like Josh McDaniels run the football this week. On third down, they're giving up 45%, which is 26 in the league. So they can't get off the field on third down. They have no chance to stop the run, and they give up 26 points a game. The Raiders should win this football game. And then you flip to the other side. Do you, by chance, are you watching the Hard Knocks Arizona Cardinals
I have not.
on
I have
HBO?
not. I have not. I have
Okay,
not.
so they played. Guess who they played last week? They played the
It's the
Chargers.
Chargers. I watched that too. All
And
22.
so I watched that episode, and this is how I always wondered about NFL coaches when they get in these meetings. And I'm no NFL coach by any stretch of the imagination, but they literally got in and the defensive staff of the Cardinals. The first thing they talked about, Justin Herbert's got a cannon arm. They throw the vertical game. They want to throw the ball down the field. And I'm like, they don't throw the ball down the field at all. Like that's the problem with the Chargers. And this is an NFL coaching staff that's being recorded, basically selling the Chargers as like the Al Davis 1970s Raiders offense. And
The
I'm like, that's not
Air
that's not
Coryell.
what they do. That's not what they do. Now Herbert will do that if he gets outside the pocket and he's on the move. He'll take shots. But I think this week you're going to have no Mike Williams. It looks like So again, Austin Eckler has been a nemesis for the Raiders out of the backfield and running the football, but the Chargers don't run the ball very well. They seem to do it against the Raiders, but that's the strength of the Raiders defense is stopping the run. So hopefully Andrew Billings is out there, but if they can get them into third and long and just not let Herbert get outside the pocket and start winging the ball around the field and make him throw into the flats, he'll throw it in the flat every time if you let him. He'll throw the hitch routes, he'll throw the stick routes.
Mhm.
He's not going to push the ball vertically because they don't have vertical weapons. So they have to figure out how to stop Keenan Allen. They can't let him get in the middle of the field and get matched up on linebackers and go 10 for 100 and 2 touchdowns. Like, goal number one is they should be doubling Keenan Allen on every third down with one of the safeties. And then if you get beat one-on-one outside against the Chargers, the third, fourth, fifth string wide receivers, then you do. But their offensive line is terrible. It sounds like Corey Lindsey's going to be out. Their
Yeah.
first and second string right tackle are out. They're starting some guy I've never heard of, Foster Sarrell or something like that. So Max Crosby should eat. And their left tackle's out. So they're missing basically four of their best 6 or 7 offensive linemen on a team that's offensive line was average. So the Raiders should be able to get pressure. The Raiders should play a ton of coverage and just make them dump the ball off, but they have to tackle. They have to get Austin Eckler on the ground when he catches the ball. And if they just run the ball and keep that Chargers offense off the field and score in the red zone, I think the Raiders can win this game. And I think they can win it rather easily. And I haven't been too confident in this team winning games
You
lately.
have not, and I'm not, and I have not been either. So it'd be interesting to see if they actually come out on top and do what you say. I just feel like, if I just worry about this. I think I'd be a little bit more confident if the Raiders played the way the Arizona coach described Herbert. I mean, if Herbert actually played that way, because the Raiders don't really let a lot of people go over the top. It's just death by 1,000 cuts every single time. But on this team, they'll take the 1,000 cuts because that's what this offense is. I mean, that's what Lombardi wants to do. He wants to get the ball out of his hands quick, even when they're fully healthy. He wants to get the ball out of his hands quick and then just 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards. I mean, that's what he wants to do all the time. So that's why I worry about this team is that part of it. I'm not sure if they can handle tackling. There's too many tackling opportunities in this game for them. And if they don't get off the field, that's just going to lead to touchdowns and stuff like that. And I think as much as bad as Eckler's run against everybody else, it just seems like he always runs the ball well against the Raiders as far as out of the backfield goes. If you had to cover him in coverage, who would you use on this defense anyway? I mean, you can't use anybody in this defense to cover
Cover
man.
Eckler?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's
Nate
just
Hobbs? No, he can't really use Nate Hobbs
yeah,
to do it. But
yeah.
yeah, well, the Raiders play a lot of man. They've been playing a lot of man lately, so it's
yeah,
going to fall on the linebackers. It's going to fall on Masterson or Perryman, who probably is not a good matchup at all in
no,
man
it's not.
coverage. Or Jayon Brown. You're going to have to trust Jayon Brown, who was the recipient of 2 back-to-back plays last week. The Raiders, had a stop on first down, negative yardage. He got into second and 20 something and second and 18, and then he was victimized 2 plays in a row. But yeah, it's going to have to be Jayon Brown, but they have to get him on the ground because I think the Raiders are going to play man in this game because that's what they've been doing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's gonna be pretty tough for them to win the game. As far as that goes, I just feel like it's one of them seasons where I feel like when you get back into it, they're gonna let you down because they're not sound. And I feel like this is a game that if they just win this game, then obviously then you're looking at possibly a longer winning streak, especially what's going on in Thursday night. I mean, basically you want a little bit of a jolt, a little bit of a lightning strike in this season. No pun intended for the Chargers, but it would help the Raiders a lot for their fan base, for everybody else to get a little juice in the season if they actually could win the game. And it doesn't matter how it happens. Just win the game and can keep this solid play going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think Rams should just mix cover one and cover three here and try to get the eighth defender in the box or in have 4 middle defenders and 3 deep defenders because I don't think they're going to start throwing the ball down the field. That's just not what they do. And I think Roderick Teamer could be a guy if because they played a lot of big nickel last week. They went back to playing big nickel, which is what they did with Abram.
Mhm.
So technically, you could have Roderick Teamer guarding the curl flat defender out there in cover 3, and still play some man coverage if the vertical breaks by the wide receiver. So I that's what I would do. I would get 8 defenders in the box, play cover 3, let Merritt go back and play center field, put Harmon down there, put Teamer down there, and then you basically have 2 safeties and 2 backers down there in the box, basically. And you're taking away the curl flat because you have curl flat defenders on every play. Just mix that up and play man and blitz out of it, and see a lot of what Gus Bradley did last year. So they played a
Yeah.
lot of cover 4 last week too, which is interesting. They basically played cover 3 and cover 4 against the Seahawks
Yeah. I mean,
most of the game.
and then I mean, if you go back to that game, you go back to that game against the Chargers, when the win the winner take all game for the playoffs. What they have like 14 points going in, what 8 minutes left in the
It's
fourth quarter.
28 to 14, 29 to 14, I think.
29 to 14. Like so, like I mean, so if you, I mean, that's kind of they're giving you kind of a blueprint on how to do it. And I think if you are able to take away those curl flats and everything in the to the running backs out of the backfield, if you're standing right there, then hopefully Chandler Jones can get to the quarterback. But then Max Crosby and guys in the middle should be able to get when you're playing backups. I mean, I'm really expecting maybe we could actually see a game where Max Crosby and his defensive line gets multiple holding calls because there's no way
Yeah.
that any of these guys like after this game, I want to see how if I don't see a bunch of holding calls in this game, how did they block
I think too,
the Raiders in this
and
game?
they said this on Hard Knocks. I don't have the stats in front of me, but Justin Herbert's like time to release is one of the top in the league. He gets the ball out fast. Like it's like 2.3, 2.4 seconds.
Yep.
And if you're going to play, because they played a lot of cover 4 last week, like you don't want to play cover 4 against the Chargers because basically you only have 3 underneath defenders. And the Raiders' problem is those underneath defenders when they play cover 4 or the 2 guys on the side are too close to the hash. So they're basically no one covering the flat. So like you can't do that against this team, especially if they're going to get the ball out quick. So I would want that 4th defender in underneath coverage and have 3 deep and play that way, play that kind of shell against Justin Herbert because he's going to get the ball out quick, and you want to have another guy in that intermediate layer, and then you also want to cover both flats. So, and then keep him in the pocket, but he's not going to take a lot of sacks. So even if they get close, he's throwing that B out of there, if you want to say that. But he's not
Yeah.
going to hold it and let those guys get home. So knock down some passes, get some hands up. He threw one right to the. I don't know if you saw the game, but he threw an interception to Zavon Collins late in the game that got overturned on replay where the Cardinals would have won the game. But the key to this game is not third down. The key, they have to get off the field on 4th down because Staley's going to go for it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and also like to that point too, like when you have them on third down, if it's 3rd and 8, if you give up 6.5, they're
He's
going
going for it.
for it. He's going for it. So you have to be able to like really hold that number to a point where it's like, okay, is it okay? Am I really going to go for it's 3rd and 8? I picked up 3 yards. Am I going to go for a 4th and 5 right now in this game? Where it could blow up in my face. Like I don't know if that he wants to do that. I mean, I don't know if he wants to do that at all. So the Raiders will do need some help along the way if they ever want to make a whatever dare I say even playoff run. But you got to take care of your own business first, and that's win your game. So once you win your games, then all of a sudden the things kind of fall into plays like they did last year. And do you really? I mean, do they really want to get swept by by? I mean, because you're most likely probably going to get swept by the Chiefs. You can't get swept by multiple teams in your division. And then and going into next year as far as that goes. What are your thoughts about anything else about this game that really kind of sticks out in your mind?
I think Vegas knows something. You saw the point spread this week. It opened Chargers -2.5, and now it's Raiders -1. So this thing swung 3.5 points in the middle of the week. So either there's a lot of smart bettors out there, the sharps are out there on the Raiders, or
Mm-hmm.
there's an injury or something's going on with the Chargers that we don't know about, injury wise. But that's a huge point shift. But I think the Raiders win this game 27-20. I think they this game they keep it in check most of the way, and then they
Mm-hmm.
get a stop late in the game. I think it's one of those where they might even be up like I don't know why I'm going to say this, maybe like 20-10 going into the 4th quarter. They make it 27-17. The Raiders score. to go back up, and then it gets close there late. But I don't think this is going to be one where the Raiders are going to have a huge comeback. I think they're playing pretty well right now, and if they have a game plan to attack the deficiency on this defense and just not let Khalil Mack and Derwin James wreck this game and just run the football, and then use play action off of that,
Mm.
I think the Raiders have this one in the bag from the opening kickoff. And I don't say that very often. I don't know why I feel that way this week, because I just got done telling you there's not enough talent on this team, but I
Yeah.
just think something's going to happen this week. I just have a good feeling the Raiders are going to win this game.
What would you say is the biggest issue with the Chargers defense? Because like if you look at if you do the Madden thing, the Madden rating thing, and you look at like, okay, Bosa's not playing, but
Run defense,
Mac and everything. I know, man.
the linebackers, they don't cover very well, and they can't stop the run. They don't have defensive tackles that are run stoppers.
and they I think that when I watch him on all 22 today, it seems like Murray is always in these really bad positions. Like he's
I
not
was never a fan of his coming out
me,
either.
me either. But he's not. I mean, if you're gonna use him as or try to make him a run stopper, okay. But every time I see him in space, he's getting abused. So I'm not sure why you're continuously putting him in space like that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But that's what they do. And
If
go ahead.
I would add, if Staley mixes it up and they bring an extra guy and they play they one on one outside, they have to take shots to Devontae. You can't let them do that and put an eighth guy in the box and not play their too high shell that they're normally doing and just let them get away. But I wanted to see more play action last week. It's hard to nitpick when they scored 40 points, but you saw those linebackers and safeties from Seattle.
Yeah.
They were crashing. The minute Derek Carr opened up to hand that ball off, those guys were shooting downhill to where they could pull that out of there and hit some play action and get big gains. So if you start to see the linebackers getting close to the line of scrimmage and sniffing out the run, they can't just run into 8-man boxes and get 2 or 3 yards. At some point, you got to play action that pull it out of there, get it down the field.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it's a possibility there. Possibility there. I love this. I wish they had a speed receiver on this team. It'd be nice. It'd be nice. It'd be
They
nice.
had one in training camp. We heard a lot about T. Billy, and then T
Yeah.
disappeared and was off the
Yeah.
roster.
Yeah. I mean, just to have him run some go
There is
routes.
one named DJ Turner. Like, he ran a pretty nice dig route last week where he got a lot of separation on one play. And I'm like, oh, that looked nice. I backed it up on all 22, and I'm like, there's not another guy in this team other than Devontae that's doing that, and they can't even use him.
They can't.
Not that he's a game changer, but like at least he's fast.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Prediction time. What do you think about who wins this game? I mean, what's the score? You think? You see, I think you said it already.
27-20.
27-20. All right. I'm going to go with 27-24 Chargers. I just feel like I just don't trust this coaching staff to do it again. And I just feel like they're just gonna it seems so simple when we talk about it because it's what they should do. And then I think we're gonna be texting each other halfway through the game and we're gonna be saying, what is Patrick Graham doing again? Why is he doing this again? Because it doesn't make any sense.
I don't want to see Mac Crosby playing any coverage this week. He needs to be rushing on every down. And then I guess I have a lot of faith in that Hobbs and Yusin are going to be able to hold up outside, and they'll have some sort of plan for Keenan Allen in the slot.
Yeah.
And then I'm hoping they play a lot of cover 3 and take away the flats. I guess that's wishful thinking, but I think this team's playing fairly well now.
You mentioned the parallels between the Raider defense and the Trojan defense. I'm watching some of the film from that game and seeing the nation's leader in sacks not rushing the quarterback in the game, playing coverage when it's an empty set and you know it's gonna be a pass play it's just great job, Alex Grinch. I love you. I love you. I love you. Such a good job. So
the Grinch who stole the Pac-12 championship.
Like seriously. In a game between USC and USC and Michigan, most likely too. It's ridiculous. Cool. Did you want to roll through? Now this is a whole change up from the Raiders and then and NFL, what we usually talk about, but Ryan's a music man, so I think he can name off songs in 2 seconds. So he did mention something on Twitter about doing like are we doing top three favorite R&B albums of all time?
Yeah, I just wrote 3 down. It's been hectic in my house. I was going to do 5, but I just dropped down 3 off the top of my head before we jumped on here of my 3 favorite. Not the 3 favorite of all time. We don't need to get into record sales and number one hits. My 3 favorite are, if I have to listen, and I listen to a lot of R&B when I do my other job and I'm working on my computer, I get into a groove. I throw on Sirius XM. I throw on 90s R&B jams and I just listen away. So um, I'll start in reverse order. I'm going to go number 3. I'm going to say Blackstreet, the Another Level album. Is probably my third favorite. And these are all CDs I own too, so that's part of the recollection that I've listened to these a lot through my lifetime. But No Diggity's on there. I like the song "Good Lovin'," "Never Gonna Let You Go," "Let's Stay in Love." Those kind of the stuff that I listen to. People probably don't understand that I got a beard and they say I look like a biker, but I'm a big R&B guy. Um, I'll go Boys the Men, not the first album, their second album, the number 2 album. On number 2, On Bended Knee, Water Runs Dry.
Oh yeah.
I'll Make Love to You's on that one as well. And then number 1, I kind of gave it away on Twitter. I went Bobby Brown, "Don't Be Cruel." This is a great album for people that are like R&B that weren't born in the time frame to listen to late 80s, early 90s R&B. But "Don't Be Cruel" is obviously the name of the album, but it's also a song on there. "My Prerogative," "Every Little
Classic.
Step," "Rock With Ya," and "Roni" is on there too. Like that's 5. Like I'm in. If I hear those on the radio station, like I'm listening to them, I'm singing in my car as I'm driving down the highway. But a big Bobby Brown fan on the "Don't Be Cruel," and then even give him a shout out. He was on that Ghostbusters um, soundtrack as well. He had a song in there.
We might have to get for your road trips. We might have to get you a GoPro so we can see some of this singing on the road.
My daughter actually does record some of it and put it on her Instagram feed, but I'm not giving that out because I don't want everyone to watch that. And she'll do it without me even noticing.
That's hilarious. So I will go with I think I'm one of the most underrated dudes who I just love. I love Donald Jones. So Donald Jones is on there. And then Lauryn Hill, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is just. I mean, it's just one of the best albums I've ever listened to in my life. So I can't do that. And but my favorite singer of all time, and it is as far as I've seen this woman in concert, I think 3 or 4 times already, and she's not a dancer or mover or anything like that. So like people say, how you sit there watch a whole concert with Mariah Carey? But I do love some Mariah Carey. I can't. I love
Mariah Carey
Mariah.
is my all-time number 1 favorite. I will
It,
say that on the podcast.
it's yeah.
My
I
I
love
have
Mariah
like
Carey.
every CD she's ever had. My favorite song of all time is "Love Takes Time." It's on her very first album back in the day, but I love me some Mariah Carey, no doubt.
I love Miss Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey is something. That's my homegirl right there. Cool. All right, Ray Nation. You got a little SC. You got a little Pac-12. You got a little Raiders. You got a little R&B. I mean, you can't beat that as far as that goes. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast here. That helps us out as well. And we're available on YouTube and anywhere podcasts are available. Anything else before we go?
I think that you just picked the Chargers, and we're 2-0 since Vic Tafer came on our show. If they lose this week, the Chargers, I'm blaming you.
I mean, you can blame. You can blame.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, but I think you can blame JMD and PG first. But yeah,
I guess I could do that too.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm blaming a lot of blame going. I want to blame. I want something to feel good about this weekend. I can't feel good. I got nothing to feel good about. USC got smoked. If they just lost a close game, maybe they sneak into the playoff, but they got smoked in that game, and now the Raiders trying to get something going. So we'll see what happens. All right, Ray Nation.
All right,
Peace.
take care.